Thus began the Age of Fire, but soon the flames will fade and only dark will remain. Even now there are only embers, and man see not light, but only endless nights. And amongst the living are seen carriers of the accursed dark sign. Yes, indeed, the dark sign brands the undead, and in this land the undead are corralled and led to the north, where they are locked away to await the end of the world. This is your fate. These are some of the first words the player hears when they start Dark Souls 1, giving context to the state of the world and the mission given to the chosen undead. The world is dying, only being kept alive by the sputtering of the first flame, offensively forced to rekindle by Gwyn, the first Lord of Cinder. When the link of the fire is threatened, the bell tolls, unearthing the old Lords of Cinders from their graves. Only in truth, the lords will abandon their thrones, and the unkindled will rise, nameless, accursed undead, unfit even to be cinder. And so it is that ash seeketh embers. These words come from the opening cinematic of Dark Souls 3, briefer than Dark Souls 1's introduction, but concisely communicates the state of the world after who knows how long, since the ending of the first Dark Souls game. Whether the first flame was linked or left to die out by the player's chosen undead does not matter for the continuation of Dark Souls 2 and 3, as the eventuality of another undead coming along to link the first flame is, in canon, inevitable. By the time Dark Souls 3 rolls around, the Age of Darkness is nigh, unless the player character links the first flame successfully. The player character, referred to as Ashen One or Unkindled, is an undead who successfully made it to the first flame before, but was too weak and was burned to ashes by its power. Resurrected from their abandoned grave, the Unkindled is tasked with defeating 4 out of the 5 resurrected Lords of Cinder and combining their embers to rekindle the first flame once more. But why are the Lords of Cinder not rekindling the first flame themselves? Why is there only one Lord of Cinder, the exiled pygmy, Ludleth of Courland, willing to sacrifice himself again for the first flame? What can one learn about the Lords of Cinder through the world-building elements? The story of Dark Souls 3 is complex, nuanced, and not exactly accessible. It's the kind of game that gives you the lore only if you look for it, and you really have to look for it. Much of the world building in Dark Souls 3 comes through the item descriptions, environments, and dialogue with NPCs. It's not obvious, and there's no narrator to hold your hand through the story except for the opening cinematic. Certain choices and actions will gatekeep players from storylines and endings, forcing them to beat the game and pursue those storylines in New Game Plus or start a new game entirely. This can make players feel intimidated when exploring the lore, as there is so much that needs to be inferred through context clues and cryptic dialogue. What information can be gleaned comes through closer inspection of certain weapons, armor, sorceries, miracles, other items, and even the very environment is deep with environmental storytelling elements that tell the lore of Lothric, as well as the stories of the Lords of Cinder. For example, Ludleth of Courland, the only Lord of Cinder willingly sitting on their throne, has the text Ludleth the Exiled written across the back of his throne. Now, there are a lot of theories surrounding the origins of Courland itself, but one theory suggests that Ludleth was exiled for his actions in becoming a Lord of Cinder. This comes from a combination of theories we don't have too much time to get into, so I'll do my best to keep it brief. Ludleth expresses in one line of dialogue, "See ye not? I am a lord, a wee flame, belike, but I should shoulder the world. Forgive me, oh please, I am not to blame. I'm not." This to some implies that Ludleth did something in becoming a Lord of Cinder worthy of exiling him, or that becoming a Lord of Cinder itself was offensive enough to his country. Most of the details about Ludleth's past can be gleaned from his dialogue, which can only really be explored deeper if the player goes on a lengthy side quest that crosses space-time. What one can gather from his dialogue is that he's exhausted, and perhaps even regretful, of his position as a Lord of Cinder. It is even possible he wishes for the Age of Darkness to come. It's complicated, but I digress. There is much more about the Lords of Cinder which can only really be learned through exploring more item descriptions. There is one Lord of Cinder which requires a closer look, as his lore offers some insight not only into the very state of the world, but also why not all the Lords of Cinder are willing to sacrifice themselves. The Lord of Cinder of interest here is Saint Aldrich of the Deep, Devourer of Gods. A mouthful of a title for a mouthful of a cannibalistic psychotic cleric. Aldrich is an abstract representation of the corruption of megalomania and having that behavior rewarded. Aldrich is, as mentioned, a cannibal, and one who delighted in the suffering of his victims so much that he continued to gorge on humans until his body bloated and became a bubbling mass of sludge and organs. Not only was his body deformed, but Aldrich became incredibly powerful from the concentration of the fragments of the dark souls found in humans. This is all information gleaned through dialogue with another Unkindled, and the brief item description of Aldrich's soul you get once you beat him. These secrets are revealed to the player as they venture through the game further, finding items with descriptions that reveal more and more about the lore. These elements come together to create a sense of immersion for the player, engulfing them in the lore of the world. Hearing tales of the Lords of Cinder, like Aldrich, from other Unkindled adds to the gravity of the quest, as well as increasing the hype around the Lords of Cinder. This hype adds to not only the anticipation of eventually having to fight Aldrich, but creates a lived-in, flushed-out feeling to the world. Not only would a monstrosity's infamy like Aldrich's spread far and wide, especially among Unkindled, the ones who have to return his cinders, but it should strike fear into the hearts of players too. What makes the fight even more intimidating, interesting, and immersive is the fact Aldrich manipulates the corpse of an optional boss from Dark Souls 1, Dark Sun Gwyndolin, who also has significant relevance in the lore. This small detail adds to the connectiveness of the Dark Souls universe and lets the player completely immerse themselves in a world that feels lived in. Like major events and changes in power have occurred many times since Dark Souls 1 took place. I would love to get into more of the lore surrounding Aldrich, but there simply isn't time. The lore of Dark Souls 3 is deep, intricate, and not exactly accessible for casual players. It can often be lost in translation or missed entirely, as a thorough exploration of the lore requires not only context from previous games, but a concerted effort to find and observe every item, sorcery, miracle, and pyromancy. It can be exhausting. However, characters like Ludlith and Aldrich are prime examples of characters with rich backstories. Their lore and effect on the world of Dark Souls are primarily accessible through its tried and true method of hiding lore in item descriptions and subtle environmental elements. It is not a journey for the faint of heart. But then again, neither is the journey to the first flame.